The moment that changed everything didn't start with a golden buzzer, it started with a smile. And not just any smile, the kind that spreads slowly across Simon Cowell's face when he knows he's witnessing something unforgettable. Stay with me until the end, because this story isn't just about a boy who sounded like Elvis Presley, it's about courage, family, and a dream so powerful it crossed oceans. And if this story moves you even a little, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more moments that remind us why we believe in miracles. The stage lights of America's Got Talent glowed brighter than ever in 2025. Backstage stood a 12-year-old Filipino boy named Mateo Reyes. His hands trembled as he adjusted the collar of his neatly pressed white shirt. His black hair was slicked back carefully, not because a stylist told him to, but because his grandfather used to wear his hair the same way. Mateo wasn't trying to look cool. He was trying to honor someone. Just 2 years earlier, Mateo's life had been different. He grew up in a small fishing town in the Philippines where electricity flickered during storms and dreams felt larger than the sky but smaller than the reality of poverty. His father worked long hours at sea. His mother sold homemade meals outside the local school. And every Sunday evening, his grandfather would pull out an old, slightly broken radio. That radio was magic. Through its static-filled speakers came the voice of Elvis Presley. Deep, warm, powerful. Mateo remembered the first time he heard "Can't Help Falling in Love." He didn't understand every word, but he felt every note. His grandfather would close his eyes and say, "That voice, Mateo, that voice makes people believe." When his grandfather passed away after a sudden illness, the house felt silent in a way that no words could explain. The radio sat untouched for months. Mateo stopped singing. The dream faded. Until one night, during a heavy rainstorm, the power went out. In the darkness, his mother lit a candle and handed him the radio. "Your Lolo believed in your voice," she whispered. "Don't let it disappear." Mateo turned the dial. Static. Then music. And for the first time since the funeral, he sang. Not perfectly. Not confidently. But honestly. Neighbors began to notice. Videos recorded on an old phone spread across social media. Comments flooded in, "He sounds like Elvis. That voice is impossible. Get him on AGT." It sounded crazy. America was thousands of miles away. Plane tickets were impossible. But sometimes miracles don't come all at once, they come through people. A local business owner saw the video and offered to sponsor part of the trip. A community fundraiser paid the rest. Mateo's entire town gathered at the airport, waving handmade signs as he left for the biggest stage of his life. Now, standing backstage at AGT, that memory replayed in his mind. The producer clipped a microphone to his shirt. "You ready, kid?" she asked. He nodded. When he walked onto the stage, the audience saw a small boy dwarfed by a massive theater. The judges looked curious. Simon leaned forward, studying him carefully. "What's your name?" Simon asked. "Mateo Reyes, sir." "And where are you from?" "The Philippines." The crowd cheered. "And what will you be singing?" Mateo swallowed. "An Elvis Presley song." Simon raised one eyebrow slightly. There was a mix of skepticism and intrigue in his eyes. Elvis songs were dangerous territory. Legendary. Untouchable. The music began. The first note left Mateo's mouth, and the entire theater froze. It wasn't imitation. It wasn't parody. It was resonance. A deep, velvet tone that seemed impossible to come from someone so young. Gasps rippled across the audience. One judge covered her mouth in shock. Another leaned back in disbelief. And Simon. Simon started smiling. Not a polite smile. Not a TV smile. A genuine, can't believe what I am hearing smile. Mateo closed his eyes as he sang, imagining his grandfather in the front row. Each lyric carried memory. Each note carried loss. His voice didn't just echo Elvis, it carried something uniquely his own, innocence mixed with heartbreak. Halfway through the song, the crowd erupted in applause, even before he finished. But he didn't stop. He poured everything into the final chorus. When he hit the last note, it hung in the air like a prayer. Silence. Then the entire audience leapt to their feet. Simon stood up slowly, still smiling. When the noise finally settled, he leaned into his microphone. "Mateo," he said softly, "I've been doing this a very long time. And very rarely does someone surprise me the way you just did." Mateo's eyes filled with tears. "You didn't just sing Elvis," Simon continued. "You made it your own. And that is what a star does." The other judges praised his control, his tone, his emotional depth. One even said it felt like watching history repeat itself. But the moment everyone would remember wasn't just the standing ovation. It was when Simon asked, "Who inspired you?" Mateo looked up at the ceiling lights, blinking back tears. "My grandfather. He believed my voice could make people believe." Simon paused. The smile softened into something deeper, respect. "Well," he said quietly, "I think he'd be very proud." The golden buzzer wasn't pressed that day, and strangely, it didn't matter. Because sometimes validation isn't a shower of gold confetti. Sometimes it's a smile from someone who rarely gives them freely. Mateo advanced to the next round. Interviews followed. Social media exploded. Clips of Simon smiling went viral. Headlines read, "Filipino boy channels Elvis and wins Simon's heart." But the real victory happened weeks later. Back home, in that small fishing town, the entire community gathered again, this time around a giant projector screen in the town plaza. When Mateo appeared on television, the cheers were louder than any arena. His mother cried openly. His father held her hand tightly. And next to them sat an empty chair with the old radio placed gently on it. Mateo didn't win the entire competition that year. The finale was fierce. Talents from all over the world competed. But he made it further than anyone expected. He earned a record deal offer. He was invited to perform internationally. Doors opened that once seemed permanently closed. More importantly, he returned home not just as a contestant but as proof. Proof that dreams born in small places can echo across the world. Proof that grief can transform into purpose. Proof that belief even from one grandfather with a broken radio can change a life. Years later, in interviews, Simon would occasionally mention that Elvis kid from the Philippines. And every time he did, that same smile appeared. Because talent is impressive. But heart? Heart is unforgettable. So if this story reminded you of someone who believed in you when no one else did, share it. Like this video so more people can hear about Mateo's journey. Subscribe to the channel for more stories that prove ordinary people can create extraordinary moments. And remember this, you don't have to be from a big city. You don't need perfect conditions. You don't even need certainty. All you need is one voice. One believer. And one moment brave enough to step into the light. The night that made Simon Cowell forget his poker face started with a nervous whisper backstage, and by the end, it became a moment the world would replay millions of times. Stay with me, because this isn't just about a Filipino kid who sounded like Elvis Presley, it's about a promise made in a tiny home, a dream carried across oceans, and a smile that said more than any golden buzzer ever could. And if this story touches your heart, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you never miss stories that remind us why dreams matter. The stage of America's Got Talent in 2025 was louder than usual that night. The audience buzzed with anticipation. The judges sat ready, their red buttons glowing under the lights. And then a small figure walked onto the massive stage, 13-year-old Daniel Cruz from Cebu, Philippines. He looked tiny under the spotlight. He wore a simple black blazer, slightly oversized, a white shirt tucked neatly inside, and shiny black shoes his mother had saved months to buy. His hair was combed carefully to the side, and though his hands trembled, his eyes carried something steady, determination. "Hello," Simon said, leaning forward. "What's your name?" "Daniel Cruz, sir." "And how old are you, Daniel?" 13. "And what are you going to sing?" Daniel hesitated for just a second. "An Elvis Presley song." The crowd reacted instantly, a mix of cheers and cautious murmurs. Singing Elvis was risky. Legendary songs come with legendary expectations. Simon raised an eyebrow slightly. He had heard hundreds of contestants attempt Elvis before. Most failed. Some embarrassed themselves. Very few made an impact. "What made you choose Elvis?" Simon asked. Daniel swallowed. "My dad used to play his songs every Sunday morning. He said Elvis sang with his heart. I want to sing like that." There was something about the way he said it, simple, honest, that made Simon's expression soften. The music started. A slow instrumental introduction filled the theater. Daniel closed his eyes. The first note came out low and smooth, rich beyond his years. The audience froze. It wasn't an imitation. It wasn't a child trying to sound older. It was natural, warm, controlled, emotional. The tone carried the deep resonance people associated with Elvis, but it had a youthful clarity that made it entirely Daniel's own. Simon's lips curled upward. By the second verse, murmurs had turned into stunned silence. One judge leaned back in disbelief. Another whispered, "Oh my God." The camera zoomed in on Simon, and there it was. A full smile. The kind he tries to hide but can't. Daniel sang as if he wasn't in a massive theater in Los Angeles. In his mind, he was back home in their small living room. His father sitting on the old couch. His mother cooking in the background. The smell of fried garlic and rice in the air. The sound of rain tapping on the tin roof. 2 years earlier, his father had lost his job. Money became tight. There were nights when dinner was smaller than usual. Nights when Daniel overheard whispered arguments about bills. But every Sunday, no matter how hard the week had been, his father would play Elvis songs and say, "Music reminds us that we're still alive." When Daniel started singing along, his father noticed something different. "You have that depth," he once said. "That soul." But then came the hospital visit no one expected. A heart condition. Surgery. Fear. Daniel remembered holding his father's hand and whispering, "I'll sing for you one day on a big stage." His father smiled weakly. "I'll be watching." Back on the AGT stage, Daniel reached the chorus. His voice soared, powerful yet controlled. The audience erupted in mid-song applause. Some people stood up early. Simon couldn't stop smiling. There was no sarcasm. No skepticism. Just pure enjoyment. When Daniel finished the final note, it echoed through the theater like a promise fulfilled. For a split second, silence. Then the entire arena exploded. A standing ovation. Daniel's eyes filled with tears. He looked up toward the balcony seats where his parents sat. His mother was crying openly. His father, now healthier, though still fragile, stood proudly, clapping harder than anyone. Simon picked up his microphone. "Daniel," he began slowly, "that was unexpected." The crowd laughed softly. "In all the years I've judged this show, I've seen a lot of kids try to copy legends. But you didn't copy. You connected." Daniel wiped his eyes. "You have a voice that shouldn't make sense at your age," Simon continued, smiling widely. "And more importantly, you have heart. That's what makes people vote. That's what makes people remember." Another judge added, "It felt like Elvis was in the room, but younger and telling his own story." Daniel explained about his father, about the hospital, about the promise. The camera cut to Simon again, his smile fading into something more emotional. "You know," Simon said gently, "this show is about moments. And you just gave us one." 3 yes quickly turned into 4. Daniel advanced. Backstage, he collapsed into his parents' arms. His father whispered, "You kept your promise." As the weeks went by, Daniel's audition clip went viral. Millions of views. Comments poured in from around the world, "I got chills. Simon's smile says everything. This kid is special." News outlets in the Philippines covered his journey. Schools organized watch parties. Strangers sent messages of support. During the semifinals, Daniel faced tougher competition. Dancers, magicians, powerhouse vocalists. Pressure mounted. Doubt crept in. One night, he confessed to his mother, "What if I was just lucky?" She held his face gently. "Luck doesn't create that kind of voice. Courage does." In the semifinals, he chose another Elvis classic, slower, more emotional. Riskier. His voice cracked slightly on one note. And for a second, his confidence wavered. But then he remembered the hospital room. The promise. The Sundays filled with music. He finished strong. The audience stood again. Simon smiled again. Daniel didn't win the entire competition. The finale crown went to a dance group that year. But something bigger happened. A music producer reached out. Invitations came for international performances. Daniel was invited to sing at charity events, even one supporting heart patients like his father once was. Most importantly, back home in Cebu, their small house felt lighter. Bills were manageable. Hope felt stronger. Years later, when asked about his AGT audition, Simon once said in an interview, "Sometimes a contestant reminds you why you started doing this show in the first place." He didn't need to say Daniel's name. Everyone knew. Because talent impresses. But sincerity inspires. Daniel proved that you don't need to be born in a famous city. You don't need expensive training. You don't need perfect conditions. You just need belief. Belief from a father who plays old records on Sunday mornings. Belief from a mother who sacrifices quietly. Belief in yourself when doubt whispers louder than applause. If this story moved you, take a second right now. Like the video so more people can discover Daniel's journey. Subscribe to the channel for more powerful, emotional stories that prove dreams don't have borders. And remember, somewhere tonight, a child is singing in a small room, not knowing the world will one day listen. Maybe that child is you. Before the first note even left his lips, something unusual happened. Simon Cowell leaned forward. Not bored. Not skeptical. Curious. And by the time the final note faded, he wasn't just impressed, he couldn't stop smiling. Stay with me until the end, because this isn't just another audition story from America's Got Talent in 2025. It's about a Filipino boy, a broken dream, and a voice that carried the spirit of Elvis Presley in a way no one expected. If this story moves you, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel, because stories like this deserve to be shared with the world. The theater lights dimmed, and out walked 11-year-old Rafael Santos from Davao City. He looked small under the massive spotlight, wearing a cream-colored vintage-style suit his aunt had sewn by hand. His dark hair was neatly slicked back, giving him an old-school charm that made the audience murmur before he even spoke. Simon looked at him with mild curiosity. "Hello. What's your name?" "Rafael Santos, sir." "And how old are you?" 11. The crowd let out a soft ah. "And what will you be singing?" Rafael inhaled deeply. "I'll be singing an Elvis Presley song." There was a mix of applause and cautious laughter. Elvis was legendary. His voice was iconic. Covering him was dangerous, especially for a child. Simon tilted his head slightly. "That's a big song choice." Rafael nodded. "Yes, sir." "What made you choose Elvis?" Rafael's voice softened. "My mom loves his songs. She says when Elvis sings, it feels like he understands her." The audience quieted. 3 years earlier, Rafael's mother had been diagnosed with a chronic illness that left her exhausted most days. Hospital visits became routine. Medical bills stacked up. Rafael